Kolawole Diya. I'm an estate surveyor. I was born in the 50s. I attended King's College, Lagos, went to University of I.R.R.V, what you now call Obafemi University, and I graduated in 1978 and I've been in active practice since 1978 to date. It's a funny story. I was studying civil engineering and then I went to do an internship and I found that the dust from the roadside, the dust from the building construction site triggered off asthma. And at the same time, I didn't want a 24/7 sit behind the table job. So I began to research into what profession could give me partly being in the office and partly being on site. And I came upon S.C.V and I said that was the course that I needed to do. That's a funny one. Since 1978, that would be how many years now? Going on 40 years. I don't know what you mean by rising to being a founding father, but what I do know is that I had a father who was a licensed surveyor, which was a different profession, and he had told me in Form 3, what you now call GSS3, that if you ever found yourself in a professional pursuit, don't stay one day longer than necessary. So I had set my eyes on practice even before I graduated. But after graduation, there was what we call the private practice decrease of 1976 by Obasanjo that said that if you graduated, you were not allowed to set up your own business until you worked at least 5 years. So I worked 5 years and then I set up my practice. In setting up my practice, Fatimilehin Co at that time, what was going on in my mind was I saw the slipshod way in which the profession was being practiced, and I saw a niche which I could carve. And I jumped into it. Oh, for sure. When I started, we were known as rent and debt collectors, and we were derided and we were laughed at. And the average estate surveyor had this collar that was torn and it was sweating and sticky and smelly. So when I set up practice, I decided I was going to change the face of the profession. I was going to change the way with which we were perceived by the public. And I went about it with a lot of gusto, which meant I said to myself, I'm not going to have staff who go and jump buses and jump that. In those days, there were no Okadas and tricycles. So I said, no, we're going to start off with cars. So I approached the bank, first bank at that time, and they turned me down. So I had to make do with the second-hand Volkswagen Beetle cars at that time. And of course, today, First Bank would be glad to extend such facilities to us. But it was understandable. You needed to prove yourself first because it was a profession that didn't have any class at that time.
Audio Jungle.
I don't know about being the expertise, but I do know that I have gathered quite a bit of experience. The first thing is integrity, and integrity is something that's very lacking in our society. I mean, this has nothing to do with S.C.V because through all strata of life, the average Nigerian doesn't have integrity. Integrity is a hallmark. Secondly is competence. Again, the average Nigerian doesn't have competence in what they do. I mean, it's very simple. I tell everybody, anybody who cares to hear, that the only reason why we don't do well in our society is we don't enjoy what we do for a living. The average Nigerian wants to be a banker, but he doesn't want to do the bank job. The average Nigerian wants to be a medical doctor, he doesn't want to stay sleepless nights. In the same way, everybody wants money, but do they really have a passion for what they do? And that's where I always tell people that I didn't stumble upon my profession. I actually went for my profession because it suited my person, it suited my lifestyle, and it suited my personality. It's not a question of a solution, really. It's a question of, in a depressed economy, where would you put your money? And my answer is very simple. Real estate, depending on how you apply the money, is still the best form of investment. And I'll explain what I mean. Way back in the early 80s, Dolphin Estate was coming up. And it was pretty obvious to me that despite that economic downturn, and there was an economic downturn in 1982-83, it was obvious to me that if you were ever going to try and live on this side of town, which is the island, from the mainland, Dolphin would represent the cheapest possible investment. And although it was being sold by LSDPC, I took the trouble to go around from friend to friend, family to family, begging them to invest in Dolphin Estate. Now I'll tell you what happened. I bought a unit. It was sold at 450,000 naira. Today the rent in Dolphin is 3.5 million. Less than 20 years after. And that is the same thing now. If I had the funds, and I would advise everybody who has liquid cash, this is the time to invest in real estate. You'll ask, in which direction? And I say towards Ekpe. And I've said to people jokingly, it's anywhere between here and Ekpe, between Lekki and Ekpe, is wise investment. Because the Lekki Free Trade Zone is coming, the Ekpe Cargo Airport is coming, the International Airport is coming, the University Campus is coming, the light rail is coming. When you put together and of course the Dangote refinery, when you put together all these things, what does that tell you? It tells you that development is going to go in that direction. So if you don't even have anything to do with the money, go lock it up in a piece of land, put some local people on it, tell them to farm, they can keep the products just for you to show your presence on your plot of land. Come 5 years from now, you'll be smiling. R.E.M.A.X is a franchise from Colorado, Denver, Colorado. I'll explain, because the R.E.M.A.X model is nothing that we've experienced in this part of the world. And I'll tell you how it started. Dave and Gail Lanigan were the founders of R.E.M.A.X, and what they did was they started off the way typical real estate firms start off. They started off and they ran up to 8 offices, and Dave was finding it very difficult to coordinate 8 offices, and he was running from pillar to post. And one day he said to himself, I'm sick and tired of this, because he was coming home at 11 p.m. dog tired, frustrated, and he called his managers to a meeting and said, look, I'm going to hand this over to you. How much are you going to pay me? And that was how he started. He gave them the franchise. You go and run this R.E.M.A.X. You pay me an agreed monthly fee, and that's the origin of R.E.M.A.X. Now, of course, R.E.M.A.X has gone from there to 109 countries in the world now, with 110,000 agents scattered worldwide. And that is the story of R.E.M.A.X. And we brought it to Nigeria. You'd ask, coming from a very successful real estate practice, why would you move on to R.E.M.A.X? 2 things. First and foremost, the average Nigerian doesn't know when to quit when the ovation is loudest. He stays on until it becomes a burden to the very organization that he set up. That is the first thing, and I thought I had spent my time there. Secondly, is the new challenges that come up with new things. So the excitement of running Fatimilehin Co had gone, and I needed new challenges, and I said, look, I can take a brand and I can popularize it in this country and make it number 1. Of course, R.E.M.A.X is the world's largest real estate practice by far.
What makes a R.E.M.A.X agent in Nigeria different from all other agents?
The advantage of R.E.M.A.X you're asking for is very simple. As an agent of R.E.M.A.X in Nigeria, I'm an agent of R.E.M.A.X worldwide. In other words, if you came up to me and said to me, look, I want to take a vacation in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and I need a 2-bed short stay accommodation for my wife and I don't have to leave here. All I need to do is get on the net, contact my colleague in Kuala Lumpur. My colleague in Kuala Lumpur would organize the accommodation, and sitting here in Lagos, I'll be able to say to you, sir, what you want, this is it, this is it, this is the payment. And it's that simple. What that means, in other words, is that a R.E.M.A.X agent is an agent worldwide, not just in terms of its location, but in terms of its service delivery. In other words, if I stayed here in Lekki and you said to me, I need a 2-bedroom flat in Owerri, by the time R.E.M.A.X has rolled out fully, because we're still rolling out, I'll be able to contact my colleague in Owerri and say to him, do you have a 2-bedroom flat meeting the following criteria? And without me leaving here, I'll be able to give you a place in Owerri. In the same way I could give you a place in Agege once we finish rolling out. So that's the strength and the strategy of RE/MAX compared to the other firms where the man has to leave his office in Lekki and begin to look for a place for you. Of course, sometimes it's impracticable. You can't look for a place for somebody in Kuala Lumpur. How much fees are you going to earn? When you're talking of credibility, what else? RE/MAX is quoted on New York Stock Exchange. For crying out loud, that's a first-class reputation. In terms of credibility, you can't go anything better than RE/MAX. At least that for sure, because it's the world's number one real estate. The beauty of RE/MAX, in Nigeria is that if for any reason I misbehave, you have the power and the authority to contact Denver, Colorado, and I will be disciplined, including possibly withdrawing the franchise from me. That is a good thing to keep everybody in check. Like I always advise my friends and clients, it's when everybody's running away from something that you should actually run into it. For example, the stock market. When the stocks went for buy one get one free a penny, a stock, everybody had run away, and smart investors moved in and creamed up the stocks at next to nothing price. Today, the stock market is growing at the rate of 12%, I think, per month. What better investment? In other words, this is in fact the time to put your money in real estate. Because I'll explain, it's very simple and straightforward. How many of us have the funds now to buy? Now, the sellers are selling because they need money to meet their needs, children's school fees and the lot. I happen to be one of the few people who have the money, so I can buy at my price, not the seller's price. So this is the time to invest, and you always invest in a depressed economy, because when it bounces back, you could always make your money back. Now, what I've told my very, very rich and liquid clients is, even if you don't want to buy real estate, I'm not saying you should. Buy it, it's better than bank interest rate. Because come 2-3 years from now, when the economy is on the upward swing, and by the way, it's already on the upward swing, then the world crude market has gone to $70. It was $30-something some months back. So it's almost doubled now. Now, what that means is that as the economy begins to bounce back, you could always sell and liberate your money. So why would I take 5-10 billion there, lock it up in the bank, and earn next to nothing in interest? When I could put it in real estate and double my income in 3 to 5 years. I do not quite understand that question, but if I can try to fathom what you're trying to say, there is no way you're going to invest in a third world country and you're not going to take cognizance of government, because government is very active in the third world industry, in third world countries. Now, for example, government dictates the pace of development, dictates the pace of the economy. So of course you would be mindful of that. However, the problem of government being overthrown is in the past. So we now know that we have 4 years within which to plan, and then you can get cautious in the 4th year and see what happens with the politicians, and then go back to planning. So right now, for example, we have probably a window of about 1 year to do real estate investment and predict where government is going. Now, in terms of the second aspect of the question is, what is government? For example, Lagos, let's use Lagos State government as an example. Lagos State government is very, very active in infrastructure. What does that mean? It means that if I had loose cash, I would go towards Ekpe and I'll buy acres of land and I'll put some boards on it and say, farm, you can keep all the products. All I want is, if anybody comes encroach on my farmland, this is the number to call, and I'll drive them off. And come another 5 years, I can resell, even if I don't want to keep the property. Now, government, because infrastructure is key to property value, Government in Lagos State in particular has been very active in infrastructure, and they are making property values absolutely over the top. No, the crash is over. The worst is over in the real estate industry. Look, the crash came because we were taking the dollar, crude we were selling from 140, it went as low as 35. Now the upward swing. I do not see another. Crash comes in cycles. I told you there was a depression in the 80s. There's a depression now. I can always tell you that when the electric cars and the solar cars come into being, and fossils are no longer being burnt, which is about 20 years from now, by my guess, then there will be another depression in the economy and ultimately in the real estate industry.